communities, they should get this right from the generations without paying money for the water. But this water goes to the big cities, and then big cities should pay for the protected areas. So it is completely very complex issue which ecosystem services are really quantified and beneficiaries should pay for this.
Okay, so it's really who profits from the protected area, whether or not, so where the benefits are going. If they stay locally, there's a bigger incentive.
It's a very different set of rules.
Okay, that's a clear point. There's another hand there.
I just wanted to add, like, in my opinion, also, it is not enough to have a look at the area that is protected in the country. That even if you have a high status of protection, like national parks, there's quite a number of cases I know in Indonesia, for example, where my research was conducted, where we have a high formal protection, but still ongoing land conversion in the national park. And just as the colleague was saying, the problem that the benefits or the some profits for the national park go to the government but never reach the local community. So in a way they are cut off from their resources that they were used to utilize. And so in the end it leads to a situation where the border is violated constantly and pushed back. So this is just what I would like to add. So not having a look only on the area that's protected on the paper, but also on the status, and can it be sustained by a continuous income to the local community.
Okay, so it actually also touches upon what he says, where are the benefits going?
Yes.
But you are talking more like financial benefits, like if the... Okay, good.
I wouldn't say that we are talking about, or that you should talk about just financial benefits, because often it is a case that the local people are just privileged. So they had their former, somehow their former rights of using the area, at least they did. And then all of a sudden, by having a national or governmental protected area, all the rights go to the government or go to the state, and the local people have no rights anymore. And it is supervised that they can't even make an effort to get some sort of livelihood out of it. And our experience is that in most cases, the local people don't have any chance anymore to have a livelihood. Also, when we talk about tourism, as soon as it is a national park and it is owned by the state, by the government, all the money goes away.
Okay, maybe then. Can you remark on this injustice where those money flows go from national parks to the markets?
It's very difficult. Of course, you should always recognize the national rights. If there are people in front depending on certain systems, depending on perhaps land rights, they should be recognized. The government cannot just overturn them. Nevertheless, there could be a need from larger objectives to arrange things differently, but then still local people should be compensated for it.
They are usually not.
No, I know.
And so it's kind of a appropriation, nothing else. And the locals are deprivileged.
Yes. And it's legal within, of course, the law of that of the country.
We did have this in
But
Europe,
morally illegal.
in former times by the kings.
Yeah.
It was exactly the same principle in the beginning of the medieval ages.
Yeah.
exactly the same. All forest is king forest.
Okay. If there are any other things to be contributed, I can briefly try to summarize what is being said now for this first point. So if we are talking about these protected areas in the way, if they actually are the way forward to protect ecosystem services, it depends on the hotspots of ecosystem services, if they are really located into this protected area. So that's one issue that is being raised. It also depends on, related to actually to this point, is like how many of these ecosystem services are actually being supplied outside the protected areas? What is the equilibrium in that? Another point that is being raised is this discussion about where the benefits are going, not just the goods and services, who's profiting from a protected area, and therefore can this protected area remain protected, and the services that are being supplied safeguarded. That depends on who profits from it. Is there local benefits to people that actually live close to this protected area? And quite clearly, if there's money involved, who gets their penny, who gets their share from this big, from the money that is generated by a protected area? And is this enough, or if this is enough of an incentive to keep a protected area protected and therefore also safeguard ecosystem services? That's kind of what I heard from the audience now. If we move on to the second point, we've been talking about it quite a bit, and also we had a bit of more of discussion already on it. Like if these PES and the RED schemes are fairly distributed and beneficial for rural communities, as they will improve livelihood and provide employment. First we might have thought, oh yes, of course, but after the presentation of Mark, maybe things have changed. I'm not sure if you have any opinions or ideas to share specifically to this point now. Of course, we start with Joachim.
Yeah, I have. I think some of the confusion about how to implement these schemes arises from the purpose why we use ecosystem services assessments. And originally, I think that it started as an argument simply to safeguard biodiversity, as an extra argument to put value on biodiversity. And that more and more, certainly after the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment and the Nagoya Agreement, that there is also that it is noticed that the integrating concept of ecosystem services serves other purposes as well. For instance, sustainable land use management, sustainable forest management, but also the fight against poverty as such, or and poverty elevation. There's a series of purposes, and depending on how you want to apply any of these schemes, there is a need to quantify ecosystem services in the way you want to apply it. If it goes for biodiversity protection, then we have seen some examples today of simple scoring systems that can be sufficient, and you have scoring maps of biodiversity, you overlay with you have scoring maps of ecosystem services, you overlay with biodiversity, and you identify your areas where you can protect one, the other, or both as much as possible on how you want it. If you want to go to this kind of schemes and you focus on the rural communities, securing livelihoods, providing employment in developing countries, then your focus is different, and you need probably other quantification methods to exactly define how much ecosystem services are provided and how your payment scheme should use that information.
Okay. So it's very much on the knowledge of the system.
And on the purpose, on why you are using ecosystems, under what kind of argument.
Okay.
And to complement your point, I think the ES could not be used just on their own to alleviate poverty. They need to be used in complementarity with other things. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called payments for ecosystem services. They would be payments for poverty alleviation or something else.
The question I always have with payments for ecosystem services is that most people in the world are not landowners. So how do they profit from such a system? That is very unclear to me. I think it is applicable certainly at local and regional.
Actually, the most of you suggested that it's all about awareness and education and knowledge. So to safeguard ecosystem services, we are all scientists apparently, and we all think that knowledge will be actually the way to go to safeguard them. The second one was integrated management. We already heard that some people have their doubts that the integrated management is actually going to help both the ecosystem and their beneficiaries. And as a last one, it's the way to safeguard ecosystem services is through legislation, through pest schemes, or through conservation areas. So that's the results for the questionnaires. We will try to make something out of this session, as we got a lot of inspiration by your ideas. We have some of your ideas on paper now, and we can now nicely put the 3 presentations together to see like the effects of conservation strategies on ecosystem services and the beneficiaries. We've heard something of it. We might be able to write something and send it to a journal, but there's no promise there. But you might hear from us later. That's actually what I want to say. I want to thank you for your great participation, because that's always a bit scary if you ask people's opinion, but you all have great opinions and you want to share it with us. Thank you for that. And I want to thank the speakers, Dennis and Mark, and the girl doing Vanya for the introduction and the summaries of the things. I want to thank my co-organizer for arranging the speakers and thinking along with us, and Joachim for his nice summaries. Thank you all.